Hello and welcome to the Movies Past and Present podcast. It's August 8th, 2019, and this is episode 31. I'm your host, Stanford Clark, and I'm podcasting from the crossroads of the West in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. Just like my blog, moviespastandpresent.com, I'll be providing recommendations, commentary, and reviews about current and classic cinema. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get started. New in theaters this week, we've got 4 major studio releases. First up is a family adventure film called Dora and the Lost City of Gold. This is from Paramount Pictures. Now, this is a live-action adaptation of the popular Dora the Explorer TV series, which is made for kind of the preschool set. But in this one, our little Dora is all grown up, and she's going to high school. And, you know, Paramount Pictures is taking a page out of the Walt Disney Studios book, and they've turned this property into a live-action film. Again, Dora is a teenager. So, having spent most of her life exploring the jungle, as we know, with her parents. Now, her live-action parents are played by Eva Longoria and Michael Pena. And nothing could prepare Dora, who is played by Isabella Moner, for her most dangerous adventure ever, which is high school. Always the explorer, Dora quickly finds herself leading Boots, who is a monkey, and it appears that Boots is a digital character in this film. Diego, who also was a character in the cartoon, played by Jeffrey Wahlberg. A mysterious jungle inhabitant, Eugenia, played by Eugenio Derbez, and a ragtag group of teens on a live-action adventure to save Dora's parents and solve the impossible mystery behind a lost city of gold. I've actually heard that this is a pretty fun family movie. I haven't seen it, so hopefully it's good, and hopefully people are enjoying a live-action version of Dora the Explorer. Dora and the Lost City of Gold is rated PG by the Motion Picture Association of America for action and some impolite humor. All right, next up is The Art of Racing in the Rain, which is a drama from 20th Century Fox. This is one of 20th Century Fox's talking dog movies, which they seem to be doing a lot of. Although this one's based on the best-selling novel by Garth Stein. The Art of Racing in the Rain is a heartfelt tale narrated by a witty and philosophical dog named Enzo. And Enzo is voiced by Kevin Costner, as you might have recognized if you've seen the trailer. Through his bond with his owner, Denny Swift, who's played by Milo Ventimiglia, who's an aspiring Formula One race car driver, Enzo has gained tremendous insight into the human condition and understands the techniques needed on the racetrack can also be used to successfully navigate the journey of life. The film follows Denny and the loves of his life, his wife Eve, who's played by Amanda Seyfried, their young daughter Zoe, who's played by Ryan Kira Armstrong, and ultimately his true best friend, Enzo the dog. So The Art of Racing in the Rain is rated PG by the Motion Picture Association of America for thematic material. All right, next up is we haven't had one for a couple weeks. Here's the horror film of the week, which is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. This is from Lionsgate, CBS Films. This is also based on a book series. It's a book series by Alvin Schwartz and Stephen Gammell. And this film is produced by the acclaimed director Guillermo del Toro. And it's set in the late 60s in America. I haven't read any of these books. Shocking. I know. But it's set in late 60s in America. Changes blowing in the wind, but seemingly far removed from the unrest in the cities is a small town called Mill Valley, where for generations the shadow of the Bellows family has loomed large. It's in the Bellows family mansion on the edge of town that Sarah, a young girl with some horrible secrets, turned her tortured life into a series of scary stories, written in a book that has transcended time. Stories that have a way of becoming all too real for a group of teenagers who discover Sarah's terrifying home. So, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association of America. And again, that's kind of a shock that they were going for a PG-13 instead of an R. But it also sounds like, again, maybe they're kind of going for a teen audience on this one. It's rated, rated PG-13 for terror, violence, disturbing images, thematic elements, language including some racial epithets, and brief sexual references. All right, then last up is a crime drama called The Kitchen. This is from New Line Cinema. This one is set in a decade ahead from our previous film, in the late 1970s in New York City. The 20 blocks of pawn shops, porn palaces, and dive bars between 8th Avenue and the Hudson River, owned by the Irish Mafia and known as Hell's Kitchen, was never the easiest place to live, or the safest. But for mob wives Kathy, Ruby, and Claire, who are played by Melissa McCarthy, Tiffany Haddish, and Elizabeth Moss, respectively, things are about to take a radical and dramatic turn. When their husbands are sent to prison by the FBI, the women take business into their own hands, running their rackets and taking out the competition literally. Now they own the neighborhood. So The Kitchen looks pretty intense. This a female-driven mob movie. So it's rated R by the Motion Picture Association of America for violence, language throughout, and some sexual content. So again, the 4 new releases this week: Dora and the Lost City of Gold, The Art of Racing in the Rain, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and The Kitchen. For reviews this week, I'd like to review a movie that opened up last week, actually. It's Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs Shaw, which is a spin-off of the Fast and Furious film series, or franchise, as people like to call it. But instead of just jumping right into the review, I'd like to give a bit of a retrospective to the Fast and Furious series, talk a little bit about its past, its present, and its future. And then I just feel like my thoughts on the series as a whole hopefully will help make my review a little more understandable of Hobbs and Shaw. So the Fast and Furious series started in 2001, and it's an interesting kind of racing and crime film that talked about a really interesting subculture. If I'm not mistaken, I thought I saw an interview with the writer of the film, who thought it was an interesting idea to take this whole kind of car racing subculture that was going on at the time, and it's illegal street racing, where they take these modified cars. Many of them are of Japanese make, so Hondas and Mitsubishis, Nissans, Toyotas all play a big role in these Subarus and whatnot, but then also put a crime story on top of it. So use the car racing setting as a way to tell kind of an interesting crime story. So it really launched a whole interesting franchise with this original film. The film was set in Los Angeles, which was really kind of a hotbed for this tuner racing going on, and the film stars Vin Diesel, He plays a character named Dominic Toretto, and really, Dominic Toretto is the foundation for this entire series. His character really is the driving force behind it all. Dom has a girlfriend. Her name is Letty, Letty. She's played by Michelle Rodriguez. Letty is involved. Letty is a racer and tough as nails, and is also involved with this crime ring. Dom has a little sister as well. Her name is Mia, and she's played by the actress Jordana Brewster. So Dom's relationship with his girlfriend and with his sister are really the key relationships. In this first film, we're also introduced to a very important character in the series named Brian O'Connor, who's played by the actor Paul Walker. And Brian O'Connor is an FBI agent, and he is sent undercover to try to bring down Dominic Toretto's ring, or at least Dominic Toretto is highly suspect, and the one who the FBI thinks is involved with this crime activity, which is really what they're doing is they are hijacking the semi trucks and stealing the cargo from these trucks. And so it's it's pretty elaborate. These high scenes are really elaborate, and part of the pleasure of actually watching these films of how they do it. And then not to mention the racing is quite interesting too, and just kind of having a snapshot into this interesting subculture. So the original Fast and Furious, which is really still, I think, one of the best films in the entire series, it's just really, I think, a really solid crime film. It often gets compared to the film Point Break, which starred Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. I also think though that is quite similar to the film White Heat in a lot of ways. That's the film with Jimmy Cagney in it. Again, just with kind of a classic theme of a crime ring gets infiltrated by a law enforcement person who's undercover, and then the undercover officer takes him down. One interesting thing, which really sets the film series in motion, though, is that at the end of the first film, Brian O'Connor has the chance to arrest Dom Toretto, and he lets him go, and so that really launches it, but also it just shows or helps the development of this character, because really these characters become like brothers, Dom and Brian, and for Dom, family is everything. One of the classic lines from the series that Vin Diesel gives in his grovelly voice is, "I don't have friends, I got family." And that's just true throughout, that this is all really, this family theme is of supreme importance. So these next few films, the second film, which is called Too Fast, Too Furious, with the number 2 instead of the word 2. So number 2 Fast, number 2 Furious, came out in 2003. This film does not star Vin Diesel. It's really the only one of the actual film series that doesn't star Vin Diesel, but it's all about Paul Walker. So when Paul Walker when Brian lets Dom go, Brian flees from Los Angeles to Miami to kind of lay low, because he knows he's going to be in trouble with his bosses because he let he let this criminal go. So of course though he gets involved with the racing scene there, and there's this drug lord, and the drug lord wants some drivers, and then they try to take down the drug lord. But there's a couple of new characters that get introduced in this film. There's a guy named Roman, who is played by the actor and singer Tyrese, and then there's a guy named Tej, who's played by the rapper Ludacris. So these two are kind of polar opposites in that Roman is just like the worst character ever. He's like the one I can't stand the most. And then that's the character played by Tyrese. And then Tej, who's played by Ludacris, is also just like one of the most laid back and cool characters. So anyway, Eva Mendes also stars in it, and she plays a U.S. Customs officer who's gone undercover to try to take down this drug lord too. And she shows up in a cameo in another film, but she hasn't come back. She hasn't come back to the series in any kind of significant role. I wish she would, because she was probably the one thing that I did like about Too Fast, Too Furious. I really think overall it's a horrible film, very forgettable, and not one that I enjoy watching at all. The third film is The Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, and this one feels like a spin-off, but it's really not. And the way that the writers decided to integrate some of these characters and some of the events of Tokyo Drift, it technically should actually be the sixth film in this series. So if you're ever deciding that you need to watch all of these Fast and Furious films, which is kind of a fun thing to do, except you have to sit through number 2, which is absolutely horrible. But something to consider is moving Tokyo Drift to the 6th spot. Just bump everything down and just watch it in between Fast and Furious 6 and Furious 7. But anyway, Tokyo Drift shockingly takes place in Tokyo. It's a whole bunch of different characters in this. Vin Diesel shows up at the end, but he's not in the film really at all. But it's about a kid named Sean, who is played by Lucas Black, and Sean is a troubled teen. He's a racer, and it gets him in trouble. His parents are divorced, and his mom sends him from California, where they're living, to go spend some time with his dad in Tokyo. And there at school, he becomes friends with some guys that are involved in this drifting racing, which I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a really interesting technique that they do, that they can take in corners, where instead of driving the car straight through a corner, they'll actually have the car go sideways through the corner, or really do a drift. So highly technical and really cool. So, and big in Japan. So not unlike the first film, it's exposing an interesting subculture in the car racing world. Again, kind of an underground type thing, but still really cool. The best character that gets introduced in Tokyo Drift is a guy named Han. He's played by the actor Sung Kang, and Han is friends with Dom Toretto, and that's the connection. Han thankfully comes back in some other films, but sadly, again, spoiler alert, Han dies a fiery death at the end of Tokyo Drift. And so it's a bummer, because he's a really cool character. So the writers brought him in for a couple of other films, and then because the events of Tokyo Drift technically happen in between Fast and Furious 6 and Furious 7, that's how they decided to do it. Again, I'm not sure if that was an intentional decision. I'm not buying it. Maybe if I ever get a chance to talk with the writers, they could step me through that. I just felt like it was they just made it after the fact, thinking, oh, actually Han's a really good character. We shouldn't have killed him off. Or since we did kill him off, how can we integrate him back in? Because it's also kind of confusing. But anyway, that's that. So then we jump to 2009, where the fourth film in the series came out, Fast and Furious. This is another drug lord movie. It's about a Mexican drug lord, but the band is back together. So we got Vin, we've got Dom and Letty and Mia and Brian, and in this film, Letty dies, or so we think she does. So that's kind of a tragic thing. But again, an interesting plot device that the writers included. Then we jump to 2011 to Fast 5. Now, I think Fast 5 is actually the best film of the series overall. It's my personal favorite next to the original. It's a heist film. So after the events of Fast and Furious, the fourth film, the team, many of them, they're living in Rio, in Brazil, and they are getting pursued by a guy from the U.S. Diplomatic Security Service, an agent named Luke Hobbs, who is played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So this is the film that The Rock shows up in. So he's trying to take down Dom Toretto, and then Dom and Brian and Mia are trying to they plan a really, and then also they assembled the team. So Ludacris, Tyrese, unfortunately, those characters, Roman and Tej, and then Han is there. Also, Gal Gadot, who as Wonder Woman, but she plays a character in this. But they assembled this really great team to steal $100 million from this corrupt businessman. And there's so much great action in this, and it's still, the action's a bit over the top, but I still feel like this film at its core is really what a Fast and Furious movie is. Great action, crazy car chases. There's some stuff that's pretty, on the borderline of just outrageous, but still, though, they overall, for the most part, follow the laws of gravity and physics, and it's just a supremely entertaining movie. So Fast 5, I just can't recommend it highly enough for any of you who are interested in these films. Then things with these next three films. It's Fast and Furious 6, which came out in 2013. Furious 7, and then The Fate of the Furious, which is the 8th film, which came out in 2017. Also just known as F8 or Fate. These three films, while they have some entertaining components, I just feel like they totally jumped the shark, and they get so crazy with their plots as they really, I think clearly the aim of the filmmakers was to take the franchise further, and they decided to incorporate elements from spy films and other adventure type films in the hopes of increasing their audience. And clearly I think they have, because the films all these films are huge box office successes, but the events are so far-fetched, and it almost, to me, from the high mark of Fast Five, really kind of is a decline in the quality. Again, not that the CGI is badly done or anything, but they just become so crazy that, to me, it just dumbs them down and makes them so. Again, not that any of the stuff is real. I'm not shooting for realism or shooting for Macbeth either, But when it just becomes so crazy, like being able to jump from one car to another, this 50-foot jump, or there's a final scene in Fast and Furious 6 where they're chasing a plane down a runway. And this runway, it's the world's longest runway because this scene goes on forever. And I mean, seriously, the scene goes on for 20 minutes. And you just think, what runway? It's not like the plane is doing circles, Like, what runway is that long? It just goes on and on. So really, I just feel like Fast and Furious 6, Furious 7, and the Fate of the Furious, they really jumped the shark. Just as a quick review, in Fast and Furious 6, they actually moved most of the action over to London. And remember Luke Hobbs, who's played by The Rock, he actually gives Dom and his team an offer that he'll offer them amnesty for all of their crimes, or basically wipe their criminal records clean, if they help take down a skilled mercenary organization that's led by a bad dude named Owen Shaw, who's played by Luke Evans. And so anyway, and then Owen Shaw gets injured and he lands in a coma at the end of Fast and Furious 6. So in Furious 7, Owen Shaw's brother, Deckard Shaw, who is played by Jason Statham, comes into the picture, and it turns into a big revenge pick where Deckard Shaw is out to kill Dom and his team. So what the writers decided to do was have Deckard Shaw is the one who actually kills Han in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. And so sadly we lose Han, and he blows up Dom Toretto's house and does all this horrible stuff. But then there's this other criminal involved, and the film takes the team to Azerbaijan, and there are a couple of action sequences in this film that on one hand are so unbelievably cool, and then on another hand are so unbelievably stupid. So it's where I really vacillate with it. Again, not that it has to be just like this perfection of realism, because I know it's a fantasy movie, but these scenes are so crazy. Anyway, in this Azerbaijan segment in Furious 7, Dom and his team, their cars get dropped from an airplane via parachute. I'm not kidding. So there are these cars flying down from the sky. So again, it's kind of cool, but also just like, really? And then they go to Abu Dhabi, and the land of skyscrapers and money and stuff there in the desert. And there's this scene where they're in some hot car. Is it a Lamborghini or? Anyway, sorry about that, but they jump it. It's up in the sky, and they in the skyscraper. Don't know what floor, but like a high floor, like above the 50th floor. They jump it from one skyscraper to another. And they're able to get it, going fast enough, get enough momentum to drive through the glass and for it to land in this other building. And While it's fun and it's cool, it's just so ridiculous and so stupid. Because again, it just is such. There's just no way that could ever happen. It's just it's almost to the point that it's frustrating. Sadly, Furious 7, which was released in 2005, it's the final appearance of Brian O'Connor's character, or Paul Walker, who died, and he died during the filming of Furious 7. They actually had to halt production for a while and rewrite the script. So the release was delayed. Two of Paul Walker's brothers were used as stand-ins to complete his remaining scenes. And then they gave Paul Walker's character a really nice send-off in Furious 7, which is something that I really liked. Basically, they let Brian and Mia retire. They've had some children together, these two characters, and they're gonna kind of send them off. They sent them off into the sunset in just a really nice way. I was actually very impressed with how they chose to do that. That was one of the few things that I liked about Furious 7. So, and finally in Furious 8 or F8 Fate, Dom's been reunited with Letty. I didn't even go into all the stuff about Letty, but Letty's has an interesting character arc herself. She got brainwashed, and anyway, but she's back. And then a cyber terrorist named Cypher, who's played by Charlize Theron, coerces Dom into working for her, and she turns him against his team. And so this movie is set in New York, and then they have this incredibly ridiculous finale scene that's in Russia, done on ice. So it's almost like it's become like a James Bond film, and not a good Bond film either. Like one of the crazy ones, one of the crazy Roger Moore ones. It just goes on and on and on with the ridiculous stuff that happens. So given that that's where kind of the point of where we are with the Fast and Furious, then we come into the spin-off, which is this Hobbs and Shaw spin-off. And I got to tell you, it's just more of the same. So it's a fun setup in that Luke Hobbs, played by The Rock, and Deckard Shaw, played by Jason Statham, they hate each other. And The Rock and Jason Statham you can tell they've got really good chemistry, and they have a lot of fun just kind of giving each other a bad time. And that's a lot of smack talk in between the two of them. But they end up having to join forces because Shaw's sister, Hattie, who's played by Vanessa Kirby, she kind of takes one for the team. They're trying to get this virus that this bad guy wants to kill the world with this virus, but she's able to incorporate it into her own body for a certain number of hours, and if they can then extract it, they'll if they can save her and extract this virus, then they'll be able to save the world. And so again, just grandiose plot that just, to me, I was rolling my eyes. Now, again, I know that a lot of people are having fun with this film, as they should. Because that's really, the intention of the filmmakers was to make a film that was a wild, fun, and entertaining ride. And I think that they deliver on that. But really what bugs me is just what's bugged me about these last few Fast and Furious movies too, is that they just jumped the shark. So at the beginning of Hobbs and Shaw, The Rock is with Deckard Shaw, and so Hobbs is with Shaw and Shaw's sister, who's got this virus in her, so they got to protect her. And she the bad guy, who's played by Idris Elba, and his character's name is Brixton, but they're in some skyscraper in London, and using rappel ropes, these guys, they break through the window, they take the sister, and then they rappel down the building, the skyscraper. So they're up, high. They're up high. I don't know how high, 60th, 70th floor, I don't know. 50th floor, and it might even be in the Shard, I think is the name of the building in London anyway. So they're rappelling down the building, and then The Rock jumps out the window. And for a few of the stories, he's hanging on the cable that they're rappelling down, but then he does a free fall. So The Rock is literally falling from this building. He hits one of these guys rappelling, and then the two of them, they land on a parked car at the base of the building, completely smashing the roof. The Rock just rolls over and then just stands up and and he's fine. So The Rock falls out of a skyscraper, crash lands on the ground, and nothing happens to him. And that just sets off the film. And the whole time I just was thinking, this is so stupid. I don't want Schmish to be a party pooper. But, and The Rock's amazing, and we know, and how strong he is and all that stuff. But really, he fell out of a skyscraper, and nothing happened to him. So the whole film is just a series of that type of stuff, which is fun if it's a superhero movie, but they're not superheroes. He's The Rock, so I guess he kind of is. But, there's a scene where The Rock takes down a helicopter, or holds onto a helicopter, a la Captain America. And of course, The Rock can do it. And then, so any of the action sequences that follow, I was just rolling my eyes. They end up going to Samoa, where The Rock's family is. His character's been, Hobbs has been a bit estranged from his family in Samoa. But he gets reunited with his brothers, and they actually have this business where they customize cars too. So that's kind of cool that, again, there's some car race stuff. But it's so unrealistic. They're doing all this stuff on this island. And they have a kind of a fun nod where they got the power switch that they use in some of these other Fast Furious movies that will enhance the speed of the car. But it's all so absolutely cartoony and ridiculous that I just couldn't wait for it to be over. So the Fast and Furious has really turned into kind of an action fantasy sci-fi type of series rather than kind of a cool car racing type thing. So I think that's probably going to continue. Now they're making Fast and Furious 9. It's set to be released in May of 2020. John Cena is in it. He's a new character. We don't know much about his character, but he's in it. And again, The Rock is not in this on Fast and Furious 9. At least he's not listed in the credits that are on IMDb.com. But Vin Diesel is, and Michelle Rodriguez, and I think Jordana Brewster is even listed as being in it. And Lucas Black, I think, might be making an appearance. And so it's just going to be interesting to see where, and Ludacris, too. And Ludacris has posted some stuff on Instagram about it. And also, Vin Diesel's posting pictures from behind the scenes from the set on his Instagram. So I've got some links on my on the blog notes on my on the podcast notes on my blog. So anyway, that's my recap of Fast and Furious, the Fast and Furious series, and also just a brief review of Hobbs and Shaw. So not meaning to be a party pooper, go have some fun and watch The Rock fall out of a building and have nothing happen to him, and have The Rock fall out of a skyscraper and have nothing happen to him, and we'll just we'll just see what's going on, and I guess if I really need a dose of reality, I can go read Macbeth myself. So anyway, there you have that. So as a reminder, Hobbs & Shaw, or should I say Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs & Shaw, is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association of America for prolonged sequences of action and violence, suggestive material, and some strong language. Thank you for listening to the Movies Past and Present podcast. Again, links and more information about all of the movies discussed in today's podcast can be found in the podcast notes on my blog at moviespastandpresent.com. As always, I hope you will enjoy some good movies this week, whether they be from the past or the present. Until next time, thanks again.
Bye.